Geometry Dash has had many updates throughout the years. So in this video, I'm going to rank the best part of every update. Let's dive into this. Update 1.0 was released in August 2013, nearly a decade ago. The game's release didn't have many features, but the ones that are included were very well made. For this update, I have to go with the ship mode. To this day, it's one of the most used game modes, being in nearly every level. It's so used that it's surprising when someone creates a map without it. Yellow orbs were a close second, with them also being used in nearly every creation. Update 1.1 would be released only a month later, and it would certainly be a rough start for the game. There weren't many new things added in this update, which is excusable, since it was released only a month after Update 1.0. But the features themselves definitely weren't the best, especially the mirror portal. It wasn't all bad though, as Update 1.1 finally added the function to comment on levels, which is a double-edged sword, and I don't even have to say why. Everplay would be a close second, as it was introduced in Update 1.11. This feature allowed for players to record level completions, which was especially needed as there wasn't a PC port yet. Unfortunately though, due to Everplay being discontinued a couple years later, comments are the clear winner of this update. Could Update 1.2 redeem itself? Similarly to Update 1.1, Update 1.2 would be released only a month later, and unlike 1.1, it wouldn't be as lackluster. We would finally receive another vehicle, this time being the gravity ball, allowing it to switch gravity. For only a single month, there's a lot introduced, and is why I'm giving the gravity ball the title for the best 1.2 feature. Update 1.3 would definitely be scarce. We would get the introduction of blue orbs, which similarly to the ball flipped your gravity. The orbs themselves are solid, and while not being used as much as yellow orbs, they definitely are needed for the game. We would also receive the leaderboards, which would unfortunately be the target of cheaters for updates to come. Blue orbs definitely weren't bad though, they just don't compare to an entire new vehicle. Update 1.4 would also be scarce, this time adding even less. The appeal of the update would be the size portals, which definitely aren't bad, but you don't see them all too often either. They would be used in the new official level, Clutterfunk, but what you might not know is that it could have been an entirely different level. You see, a couple years after this update's release, people would find a level named active in the game's files, which would have been the official level for Update 1.4. Imagine how different Geometry Dash would be without Clutterfunk. While this was definitely a neat feature, Update 1.5 would be where the game really stepped things up. Update 1.5 would finally introduce a new vehicle after months of wait. This mode was the UFO, which functions similarly to Flappy Bird. Now, the UFO isn't bad, but there's a quality of life feature that overshadows it in every way possible. Copy pasting. Before the update, if you like the structure of yours, you would have to rebuild it by hand, which sounds painful. Imagine how long this part in Xep took to make. If we didn't have this feature, this game would certainly be less popular, and insane asylums would definitely have an increase in visits. Also remember active? Well, there's an interesting change to it. You see, every level in the game has pulsing guidelines, which is what tells the game to pulse these objects. The pulsing data for active mysteriously changed. Clearly, Rob wanted to do something with this song, but never finished it. This situation eerily reminds me of the giant from Minecraft. Active would end up getting an update a while later, however not before Update 1.6 would be released. The long streak of near monthly updates would come to an end with Update 1.6, which has always felt like it added more than it really did. The game finally got its first official demon level, map packs and secret coins, which were definitely the highlight of this update. There would be 3 of these scattered across every official level, which provided an interesting challenge to shake up the maps. While some coin placements definitely don't feel natural, in the end this change was very needed. Also, the teaser art has no reason to be this fire, I don't know what else to say. Finally, the game would begin receiving updates that didn't just add a single orb. The new official level, electrodynamics, would look normal, until you approach this strange looking green arrow. Upon colliding with it, your cube would rapidly increase in speed, completely messing with players' previous knowledge of the game, but in a good way. Now levels weren't forced to have hundreds of fakes to be difficult, but could instead rely on the player's skill, which was definitely needed for the game. I would go insane if the average featured levels still looked like this cesspool. The update would also introduce copying levels, which would kickstart the trend of collaborations. However, I believe that speed portals were way better for this update. Similarly to 1.7, update 1.8 would be huge, although you don't hear it talked about as much, which I'm not really sure why. The update brought a lot to the table, with duels being the biggest thing it offered, allowing for a new twist on vehicles that had been untouched for many updates. We would also see slopes, which are very fun to mess around with. Those two features are amazing, but don't compare to editor playtesting. You see, before this update, if you wanted to playtest your own level, you would have to play it in normal mode, which sounds like a nightmare. Finally, players could playtest levels in the editor, which is a long time coming. I can't imagine what this game would be like without this feature. The so-and-so golden age of Geometry Dash, update 1.9. Compared to the previous updates, this seriously one-upped them. We would receive a new vehicle, the Wave, which would instantly overshadow the ball and UFO, becoming a staple of many levels. Players could also now use custom music instead of being bound to the repetitive nature of the official level songs. I would likely lose my insanity if I heard Time Machine every other level. This update would also change the difficulties of many official levels, which is certainly a controversial change. There's no way Dryout is normal. Anyway, while the Wave and custom songs were a long time coming, they definitely can't beat out the game finally being released on Steam, opening Geometry Dash to a new pool of players. Nowadays, if you want to complete anything over an easy demon without spending hundreds of thousands of attempts, it's best to play on PC. Update 2.0 was strange. Despite introducing so many new features in the update, none of them really stick out. There was a new mode, the robot, but it functioned nearly identically to the cube and is definitely overshadowed by it. Players could also make objects move, and despite being initially abused, that's going to be a necessity in many levels. This would also kickstart the Alter Game series, one of the most iconic sets of levels to date. We would also get user coins, which are very similar to secret coins, but for users. Shocking, I know. While it's extremely close, I believe user coins slightly beat out moving objects, simply due to them making online levels a lot more explorable if done right. Update 2.1 would continue the trend of adding a new mode for every single update, this time being the spider. This functioned nearly identically to the ball, except it was instantaneous. With these new vehicles, it was becoming clear that Rob was struggling with ideas for them. We would also get a bunch of non-level elements, like gauntlets, which essentially replaced the map packs. Unfortunately, they would also suffer the tragic fate of creators not knowing how to create. We would also get daily levels, which was a daily challenge that players would get. While certainly not a bad feature, there isn't much reason to go out of your way to beat them, except for a couple extra stars if you plan on rebeating them. Honestly, it would be cool if there's a badge that displayed on your profile on how many daily levels you've beaten. These wouldn't affect the game. There'd just be some nice bragging points like demons. However, Update 2.1 is nothing compared to Update 2.2. Update 2.2 hasn't been released for over half a decade. And to put that into perspective, we would have had 77 official updates if we still went by the game's earlier standards after 2.1. Which is what Rob actually intended. Anyway, there's a new vehicle coming out once again. This mode functions like the ball, except it works mid-air. I seriously have a feeling Rob is attempting to kill the ball off, because nobody releases two versions of it back to back. This has to be personal. We're also getting Versus mode, which will allow you to race against other players for rewards. This feature is amazing. However, it couldn't get the title of the best 2.2 feature for a simple reason. You can't see other people's icons while racing, which is pretty disappointing. I really hope you'll be able to see other competitors live in the future. Now, this might be pretty controversial, but I would have to say platform mode is the best feature coming in Update 2.2. While it does stray away from the game quite a bit, I really don't mind it, unlike other people. I have way too much skill issue to play difficult creations, but regular feature levels bore me to death. As long as the platformer levels aren't key mazes and actually nudge you to explore them, I'm all for it. Versus mode and platformer mode go hand in hand as well. As with normal levels, the strategy would be to prevent dying as much as possible. But with platformer mode, it would also introduce an element of risk, something that is definitely needed. Do you risk dying to save a couple seconds, or do you play more calmly to avoid being sent to the Shadow Realm like these sneak peeks? Speaking of sneak peeks, however, there is way more coming to Update 2.2 than you think. So here's everything you missed in the update sneak peeks. Go check it out, and as always, thanks for watching. Peace.